This is going to be perfect then, just in time for the
Mate,
weekend.
it's perfect. It's like the one thing I actually like about doing them over Zoom is the editing time goes from like a couple of hours to literally a few minutes, really. Because all I have to do is replace my video feed, cut the audio in, and that's pretty much it. Because I don't have to worry about doing camera swaps or anything like that. Because they just stay up the whole time.
Done.
It's fantastic. And by the way, there will be some times where I'll look like I'm not actually looking, but that's just because we've got main camera up here. So it's actually when I'm being polite and giving you proper eye contact, I look like I'm being a rude prick.
Yeah, no worries, man. Don't stress. All good. I understand.
It's too easy, man. I mean, this is one of those situations where honestly, when I go into a podcast with someone, I actually like to keep things as little as possible known. So, I mean, give me a little bit of a breakdown on yourself, man. Like, I've seen you around the shows. I know that, I know of you from the industry as just one of the best coaches that there is in the, natural bodybuilding game. But give me like, a little bit of rundown of yourself. Like, how did you get into all this jazz?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I had a very early start in the fitness industry and bodybuilding industry, I suppose you could say as a whole. I started working in a gym out of high school, and in the years that followed, my love for training grew, and I always had an ambition of looking like a superhero, having grew up on comics. And at the ripe age of 19 years old, I donned the micro trunks, the ultra
Nice.
brown tan, and felt the warmth of the stage lights for the first time, which is super exciting.
I was gonna say,
And it
man,
just
like,
followed on
like
from there.
that moment when you realize that you actually have hit superhero level.
Yeah. And it just followed on from there. So, from 19 years of age doing that, I came back as a junior, and then I came back as an open, as a pro. And last time I was on stage was 2019. It's quite some time ago now, but unfortunately, COVID sort of extended the off season a bit longer than I'd liked. And obviously, that was a very successful season. So
So
here we are
before
now.
before actually getting into the competitive season, at 19, how long have you actually been training for up until that point?
I'm going to say probably a few years. I mean, I started training at 15 or something like that,
Yep, very similar.
with whatever's available at the family farm, because we lived out, let's say, semi-rural, 45-minute drive to a gym, but you don't have a driver's license at that age, so you're
Yep,
lifting whatever you can. So we had a bit of I suppose you could say, a jungle gym of sorts
nice.
that I made with various bits and pieces. It was a really cool start. And at about a year out from the first show, I decided, okay, cool, let's do this. Let's bring it together. And it was a very organic thing. It wasn't, I didn't have any idea how it was going to go. I just knew I had this canvas that was my physique, and I wanted to take it as far as I possibly could at that time with whatever knowledge was available then. And, did that. And I surprised myself and won a teenage title at the time in 2013 now.
Solid, man, solid. I actually kind of find that funny because it was it's similar to, like, well, not similar, but like when I first got into it, I remember that because we had our main house and then we had a shed out the back that was just dad stuff, and it's just you walk in there and it's just there's crap everywhere. You don't know how to get around it. He can walk in there and knows where everything is, but it's just an absolute mess. And I'd remember seeing, like, years before that, like a couple of weights just like tucked away in one of the corner. And one day when he was out, I like snuck downstairs, like got the key, went into the shed, pulled all the weights out of there because I knew he wouldn't notice that I'd taken them. And then it was like 3-4 weeks later, Mum noticed that they were under my bed because, like, every single night after everyone had gone to sleep, I was just in my room doing like curls and shit, like curls, overhead extensions, bench press on my bed, all this sort of stuff. It's just this, like 14-year-old kid, because at the time we didn't have any gyms in my town whatsoever, and it wasn't even a thing. So that was, I guess, my entrance into it. So I find it kind of funny when you say I guess, like, ragtag jungle gym, because it's a good vibe.
I mean,
It's something
there's definitely
different.
some parallels there. But I think that having started training in that kind of environment, or rather just with a lack of availability of equipment, it gives you an appreciation for attending the gym. When I first went to a gym, don't get me wrong, it would have been a PCYC gym or something like that, and it wasn't well kitted out by conventional standards, but I was like,
Yep.
wow, this is fantastic. I've been lifting with Besser
100%.
bricks, like, a couple of tent poles and hook a couple of Besser blocks on the edge of that end of that. We're doing dips between some chairs with a backpack full of rocks I found around the property. So
See,
the
but
kids go,
mine was shopping bags filled with water bottles. That was my
right?
that was my added resistance when I outgrew like the weights that we did have available. It was just like strap them onto the end of it and then keep going with it. And again,
Weights.
back in those days, it was also like when say like 6-pack shortcuts and like all that was like the rage on YouTube. So like doing
Likewise, yeah.
like the weighted like towel stuff and all that sort of jazz. Probably looked like looking back on it, I was probably look like the biggest wanker in the world. But it's just like me in my bathroom at night, just doing like towel rows and like towel pull downs and stuff like that. Man, it brings back some fond memories. I haven't thought of those in a while.
That's really cool. It's really cool. You know, I remember I'd my father used to drive him insane doing chin-ups on like the timber frames of the roof and bending his outdoor chairs, doing dips, you know,
Yep.
all day, every day, that kind of thing. But
Bro, it's like,
here we are.
hey, mum wanted the windows replaced for years on end. Eventually, dad got around to it, put all the scaffolding up, did the job, just left the scaffolding there for years on end. And I would literally be like outside the kitchen window doing pull-ups on this just dodgy rinky-dink scaffolding with like little weightlifting gloves so that I didn't like rip my calluses open too much. Because at the time, and again, when I first got into training, it was a lot of sort of strength-based stuff. And I would always every single time I do deadlifts, it's like I wouldn't leave the gym until I had like ripped a callus. So like my hands, I was like fuck doing it on this like dodgy rusty bar without wearing some form of protection. Memories. This is the crazy shit you do when you're first getting into the gym.
That's a proper start though. You see, you learn that mental hardiness from the get-go. Then you get into this nice cushy gym that's got all this smooth equipment. And you, like I said, you have unique appreciation. That's a beautiful thing.
100%. It's like, say, even today, you know, you go out to like getting to shoot an opening day for a club like Worlds, and they've got like the most up to date, like the Gym 80 equipment and stuff like that, where it's just, it hits fibers that you didn't even know existed before using it. And it's like, even myself, I was at a point where I was like, oh, gear doesn't make that much of a difference. It's like, you know, equipment's equipment. But some of the stuff they've got, you notice the difference. And it's actually really cool just to play around with.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
How did, because this is one of those, I guess, topics where everyone that I've spoken to, because you actually come up a hell of a lot in general conversation just from speaking to people in the industry. You're quite famous, my guy.
Apparently.
Apparently, but like you're well known for just being one of the like, just most clued on, educated people when it comes to nutrition, training, and how the body works. Did you get into that through school, or how did that come about? Was it just like a personal passion, or?
Yeah. Well, look, I think that our industry as a whole is a passion-driven industry. If you don't have the passion for it, I mean, it just, it doesn't work. So it starts from passion. And, first I was a, competitor myself. And then as the years went on, I continued my education, both through tertiary pathways and also through various other professional development mentorships, etc. And it was around 2014, thereabouts, where I started coaching. I've been in the fitness industry as a whole for 3 or so years at the time. And, from an educational background, my education's pretty simplistic. Like most, came up, did the set 3, 4. I did 3 or 4 diplomas after that, which don't really mean much. I did study exercise science, and then I went more into the nutrition side of things. And even as we speak now, a decade on, I'm still studying. I'm at the pointy end of a master's degree. At the moment, which is, I suppose you could say, a bit of a side hobby alongside what I do with my athletes, given that the higher you work up the academic sort of pyramid, the less contextual specificity it has to practice, because really what I'm doing right now is more about teaching you to be a better academic and contribute to the evidence base through research and that kind of thing. But definitely a passion-driven endeavor. And I'm very fortunate. I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to share this with other people, and even you saying before, your name comes up in conversation. I'm like, wow, that means so much, because really, I'm just another guy that loves bodybuilding. And it just means a lot to hear that, what we do as a whole is recognized in a positive light, because I definitely don't carry any ego about me, as a competitor or coach. I just think that
Just
hard
a guy
work speaks,
doing your thing.
Yeah.
Just a guy doing his thing, pretty much enjoying what
That's
you do.
it. Yeah.
I think that's the main thing, isn't it, man? If you don't mind me asking, so what is your master's you're actually going for?
It's a master's in science, majoring in exercise and nutrition science.
Nice.
So it's a bit of a broad piece, and it's I suppose the specificity to bodybuilding per se is quite limited. I mean, there's nothing out there through tertiary pathways that's directly specific to bodybuilding. But I think, but again, I really enjoy it, and the research side of things really fascinates me. But I'm a pragmatist, so I'm hands on. That's really what I like to do more than anything. So, like I said, I kind of consider that as a hobby there. Expensive, time consuming hobby on the side.
Hey man, hey, you gotta have hobbies. At the end of the day, my hobby is cameras. Another very, very expensive hobby if you let it do that to you. But it's a bit of fun.
But it's also your living too, right? So you made it work.
Exact same with yourself, isn't it? So it's like when you can combine those two together, isn't that like the goal? Isn't that the dream in a sense?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
100%. I was going to say, like, when you first transitioned into being a personal trainer, did you go like the corporate gym route? Like, did you go from like straight into school? Like, because I know like a lot of PT schools, they do like affiliate programs with different clubs to get into it. Did you go through that route, or did you go straight into doing like your own coaching, your own thing? Hey, how's it going? Hope you're enjoying this episode so far. Just wanted to take a second and ask if you could please leave a review on this podcast. And if you hear something you think could help someone else, share it with a friend. Word of mouth is really the best way to help these things grow. So please, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work in a boutique studio following the sort of basic PT sort of route. I was very fortunate to have that opportunity. So basically I think it was a fantastic start. Taught me how to operate in the gym environment, taught me how to build productive relationships with clients and that kind of thing. And I did work within that gym for some time. I think it was about a year and a half thereabouts. And there following, I went out, I suppose you could say on my own, into a bigger box gym, so to speak. And I was there for a few years. And in fact, not to get too into the life story, but I was there for a few years. And then a close friend of mine,
hey man, we love
Nathan
the life
Wallace,
story.
Yeah, close friend of mine, Nathan Wallace, opened a gym down on the Gold Coast, and I was living on the Sunshine Coast at the time. Business was great, we're at capacity. I just wasn't overly fulfilled, I suppose you could say. And he said, "I'm opening this new gym. We're specializing in bodybuilding coaching." And I was like, "Yes,
Nice.
Sign me up." I moved down the next week, and I'm still living on the Gold Coast here.
Solid.
What's that? 8 years later. So
yeah, man. Hey, it's a good way to go about it. So are you still like, are you primarily online these days, or are you still doing a lot of face-to-face? What's the sort of like breakdown split for yourself?
I'm solely online these days.
Solely online. Nice.
And look, I'll tell you this. I was very, very resistant to going online. I was always the in-person guy, and I like that because I like to forge relationships, get to know people. And I thought that on the online side of things, it was very hard to do that. And the way a lot of people were running their coaching back, pre-2014 was very kind of robotic. But I branched onto the online basis as a product of necessity. People were just not in my geographic location, but wanted to employ my services. Very grateful. And so that's basically how we transitioned to the online side of things. And my whole entire kind of ethos was to bring the in-person kind of coaching to the online space. So even the way we do check-ins these days is very personal, and I get to know my athletes really well. And I think that's part of the reason we're able to create the results that we are, because foundation to a good coaching relationship is trust, communication, and then obviously you can take your education and apply it from there.
100%. I was going to say, because I know that for a lot of coaches, the goal is to sort of make that transition from doing, in person to more online, whether that's for flexibility, freedom, or the ability to actually outreach and meet more people that they would, same in your situation, like outside of that local area. Were there any main things that you found really beneficial for making that transition that sort of really helped you personally?
Look, as a start, I think on the topic of being online being the ultimate goal for a lot of people, I think it's really important to kind of earn your stripes in the in-person personal training. I think that's an incredibly important piece. Helps you build, learn to create meaningful relationships and that kind of thing, which I think will serve you really well on the online space. Don't get me wrong, they're two quite different skill sets, but you'll pull from one to the other. Yeah, I don't
So
think that really answered your question, but for me
no,
personally,
it does in a sense. I guess like what from what you just said, what it kind of like comes across to me is when like you were almost like pushed towards doing the online side of things out of necessity because you couldn't actually facilitate the clientele basis anymore, and you couldn't actually grow. You'd hit capacity so much that it didn't actually make any sense whatsoever to continue the face to face when that time could be better spent to serve a wider audience who trusted in you enough to be their coach and to go down that route. So it's actually about doing the in person to develop the personality and to develop the skill sets and to develop the appreciation from others to where it actually becomes a natural transition rather than you going out with the goal of doing it.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that I mean, look, I'm a bit biased in putting forward that as a good way to do it, considering I did that. But I do think that the online space these days is, it's very saturated. So you really have to come in with, well, a point of difference and a very specific niche.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, that's the thing. It's like the more and more saturated it gets, all that means is the more and more competitive it gets. And when you're going up against people who do have the background in the face to face, and they have built up their stripes in that, it's like, really, how do you expect to compete in that field if you're trying to go just straight into that with absolutely no backing whatsoever? It's like you need to, I guess, be able to get to know a person on a personal basis to then be able to do that without actually having the direct contact with them, which is, like you said, a complete another skill set in its own right.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you, I guess, were doing the face-to-face stuff then, what was, if you don't mind me asking more sort of like the businessy stuff, because I really am interested in that sort of things, what was like, it's like a lead gen strategy for a PT? Like what was your process like with actually getting on clients? Because from what you're saying, you managed to fill up yourself to a point where it was only made sense to go online. And even for people who are, say, like PTing, coaching at the moment face-to-face, that is a goal that they're going for. What strategies did you find were beneficial for doing that?
Yeah, look, I mean, when I was solely in person, I leveraged my ability to talk to people, and back then, I would talk to anyone and everyone in the gym, and if I wasn't in the gym, I'd be talking to someone else through some other medium. When I first moved to the Gold Coast, and when I first moved to the Gold Coast, I moved down here. I needed to use Google Maps to find out how to get from my new accommodation to the gym I was going to be working at starting the next day. I knew nothing about the whole where anything was or anything like that. I knew no one down here. So, any time that I wasn't in the gym, which was a studio gym, so there wasn't a high traffic gym like a World Gym or something like that, I'd be out in the community. I'm going to buy 3 supplements today. I'm going to go 3 different supplement shops to introduce myself and say g'day. So I suppose, I'm going to go to a cafe and work because I'll just end up talking to a bunch of people. So when I was in personal training, it's kind of what I did. I would talk to anyone and everyone. And again, I'm quite a social person like that. And the online side of things is obviously all driven through social media these days. But in person, that was a different type of hustle,
Something I'm actually curious about, like for yourself being more in that online space now, is it actually like, say, do you feel it is actually the social media aspect, or do you think it's more the referral standpoint now for yourself? Because a lot of people that I know, they speak about wanting you as a coach. You're actually like a dream coach for them, but it is very hard to get to work with you because of how well respected you are in the industry. So is it actually more of like social media inbound, or is it just like point of referral and stuff like that?
I mean, look, it'd be hard to delineate what comes from what. I'd say it'd be a combination of both. I think one thing to keep in mind with the bodybuilding industry is we are, particularly natural bodybuilding, we're a niche within a niche. We've got physique sports, then we got enhanced, or let's just say untested, right? Politically correct. And we have the natural side. So you've got a niche within a niche.
Hey man, and a niche. I mean, because from what I hear, at least you specialize more so in opens as well, in actual like bodybuilding itself.
Yeah, you are well informed. So yes, indeed, I do. It's sort of a niche, the niche, the niche. So within a community like this, almost everyone knows everyone. If you're if you've been involved in the sport for a few years and you go to your regional, state, and national shows, maybe you dabble across in some international shows in the UK, US, you get really involved in the community, and then from there you have a social media community as well, that perforates from that also. So yeah, it's a small community. So I'd say it'd be a combination of both, directly through social media and also through referrals. I think that one of the cool things about social media is people can get to know you. And I will admit I'm a little bit slack on social media myself, but people get to know you, a bit about what you do, who you are. And I think that means that by the time people reach out to you, they have an idea that, okay, that's they have an idea about you and who and what you do, essentially.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things. For the longest time, I did not like social media. I put it off. I hated it. It was just not my thing whatsoever. And that stemmed from, just the self-comparisons that happened a lot when I was a teenager growing up. They caused a lot of, body dysmorphia issues. And I just thought that social media itself was a bit of a cesspool of just crap, pretty much. Yeah. And it's only... it really can be, but at the same time, I have started actually getting an appreciation for what it does allow you to do if you, I guess, use it to its full ability, like to meet people, to talk to people, to network with people I would have never even thought imaginable. And it's a crazy feeling. Like even the other day, I'm training at the gym. Someone comes up and he's like, "Hey, are you Fit Focus Media?" I'm like, "What the hell?"
How amazing is that?
So it's like it's kind of funny, It's like, and as the team starts to grow as well, more people know me by the brand name than by my actual name, and I find that funny, but also really cool, to be honest. And all of that has really just come through free social media platforms and trying to get into the community as much as possible and just actually meet people and try and find out some stories about people's journey and, just having a chat. So I don't know, I've gained a bit of an appreciation for what it can actually do if you use it for its intended purpose, oddly enough.
Yeah, it's connected me with some of the most amazing people. 2019, for example, before I went to the US, I was chatting with some of the competitors which I was getting on stage with, and, we were just revving one another up like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. So, it can be a wonderful tool.
100%, 100%. And another thing on the coaching side of things, I did see recently that you and Daniel are doing a bit of a team up, man.
Yes, indeed. Very exciting times.
Hey, very exciting. Just a little bit of a rundown on that.
Yeah, so it's been in the pipeline for quite some time, I will say. And obviously, BK conditioning has been my baby for many, many years, and it's just been me, and which has been good and great. But I've always had that vision for creating a sort of a coaching conglomerate of expertise, and I'm really confident that Dan, he just brings so much to the table. And Dan and I are very similar. Our educational background is almost symmetrical. And obviously we share this amazing love for bodybuilding and this passion for coaching. We have the unique opportunity to work alongside others of whom are equally passionate to us. So that merging of minds is really exciting to announce that. And, Daniel's been, he's got a limited client intake coming up, and he's been filling up very quickly, and that does not surprise me at all. So
100%. And it doesn't surprise me that you say that. You two seem like you would click 100% on pretty much every level. He's the sort of person where, every time I see him, I can't help just smile. Like, he's just a nice guy. And he's fun to have a conversation with. He's been friendly enough as well to jump onto a couple of interviews with us. And it's just nice to, get to know people in the community like that as well.
Absolutely. I think,
sorry, you go. No, you go.
I was just going to say, that you can, you have a chat to somebody and you can always tell, who is really genuine. And Daniel is just an incredibly genuine gentleman. So that's exactly why, him and I just work so well with one another. So
100%. So what is the goal for BK conditioning?
Well, basically the first, like I said, the goal here is really to create a coaching conglomerate of sorts. So have a few, what we might end up with a couple of coaches. And then from there, once I finish this current bout of education, the next step for us is to really look into more the educational side of things, doing some more mentorships with coaches.
Nice.
It's a very unique skill set, the contest preparation coaching side of things. And there's certain things that it's hard to teach outside of actually doing some small group or one-on-one mentoring. So that's the direction in which we will go over the next few years.
So with yourself and Daniel, because I know how you said you are very similar in a lot of senses. Do you guys are you still different when it comes to, I guess, your specific, like your specialities or like your specific niches in a sense, or are you both say like great with open people, or I guess is there a split in that sense where like you're really good for this one and he's really good for this type of client, and that's where I guess the ability to sort of help everyone that's trying to do a specific thing comes from, if you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Look, we have essentially we continue to specialize in contest preparation. We don't do much on the sort of general population side of things. We obviously have different coaching mannerisms to a degree, which I think is beneficial. I think there's a coach out there for everybody, and what determines a good coach for you personally goes beyond their academic achievements and their ability to coach others, because it's a personal relationship.
Yeah.
But essentially, we continue to specialize in contest preparation overall. Daniel, at the moment at least, will work across the board from bikini right up to figure, bodybuilding, etc. And we have our systems of which we share similarities with the way we do things, and that's how we're able to consistently provide the results that we do.
Yeah, nice. And what is it that you actually look for in a client, for example? Like when someone applies to work with you, what is it that you're looking for in them?
Well, personally, the one thing that one irreplaceable commodity of any good athlete is always going to be work ethic. And I sound like a broken record every podcast I go on, I start harping on about how important it is to be, to have to be able to back it up with the work ethic. So really what I like...
important.
100%.
It's like probably because it's very important now.
So really what I would say, I can't say look for, but what I would say is desirable in an athlete is having the ability to basically head down, bum up and do the work. And if I have someone who's willing to take on board, what I'm bringing to the table, then a high quality result is almost guaranteed, simply because the body is a series of logical systems. And if we control the right variables, we have a very specific and predictable result. So I want someone who's going to come in and do the work. I'm not saying you need to be a complete robot. We are emotional beings. Things in life come up. Life doesn't stop for bodybuilding. But that get shit done mentality is important, I do believe.
100%, 100%. When it comes to competing yourself, you mentioned before about the US. So you've done a bit of traveling through competing as well. Where are the sort of places that you've been personally?
Well, the US and Indonesia is the two places that I've competed. We did a show back in 2016 in Indonesia, and we had some boys from the UK and France come over. That was pretty cool. That was my actual pro debut, 2016. And then 2019, I did go to the US, and I did 3 weeks and 3 shows over there between the East and West Coast. We sort of went LA, we did the INBA Universe over there. That was great. Then we went over to New York, did the WNBF Worlds, and I also went to Portland, which is an interesting show. So yeah, I had done a bit of traveling, and really, like I said, I love bodybuilding. I just love getting amongst when I have the opportunity to travel elsewhere, to a different country, just getting amongst a different kind of bodybuilding culture. Every country has a different kind of flow about it. Yeah. And that's part of the enjoyment for me. I feel like a real athlete when I'm able to travel. Bodybuilding is unfortunately, particularly the natural side of things, not a sport that's going to be, televised or heavily respected in the wider population. But when you have the opportunity to travel and meet other people of whom love the sport as much as you, I mean, hey, that's just the best thing ever.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, how do those, like, the caliber of physique compare, like, say, to over in the US?
Yeah. Well, look, I went when I went to the US. I did specifically do the INBA Universe, and I did that as a pro, and the WNBF as well, for the Worlds. So I went to the some of the highest caliber shows I possibly could. My number one thing is, well, I got this canvas that is my physique. Let's just chuck it on stage with the best in the game and see where we measure up. Get beat, I got something to aim for next time. Let's rock and roll. So the shows that I did were high quality. In the US in general, it seems to be a bit of a mixed bag in that you've got a big body, from my observation, being an Australian who's
Yeah.
traveled to the US. There seems to be a lot of natural bodybuilding shows, more federations than here. There seems to be, but it seems to be pretty hit and miss. But when you get to the high level, it's fantastic. Really. Here in Australia, we seem to have overall pretty good quality at the amateur level. We just seem to have a good bunch of coaches doing their thing. But at the high level in the US, amazing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I suppose one of the things when you're like even let's say talking about that in the US is just simply like the population density and stuff like that. It's like you've just got more people who are in the scene, so you're gonna have more people who are competing, and if there are more shows available and it's more widely spread, then it just gives more opportunity, more reason for someone to jump on stage and give it a crack. So that's where you're gonna get a lot. You're gonna have like sure like your median here, then you're gonna have a fair few that are falling below that, but then you are gonna have like those top of the notch that are just freaking insane. You're like, holy crap, how are you human?
Yeah. I mean, you have to keep in mind, I suppose Australia is a incredibly small country
Yeah.
in terms of our population. I mean, hey, here we are sitting, I don't know, 25 or 26 million, whereas India is in the billions, etc. So, yeah.
It's mental, man. Because I mean, I've only I guess like places traveling wise, like I lived over in the UK for a while, but unfortunately didn't get to do much traveling through Europe at the time because my family was planning on coming over to do like a 16-week trip through all of Europe,
Yeah.
and then COVID happened, so everything got
Devastated.
yeah. So it's like everything got cancelled. Didn't get to do any of that. So in like the UK, population density isn't I guess super crazy. At least it didn't feel that way. But I couldn't imagine like what it would actually be like to be in one of those places. Like I would love to go check out like Japan is like number one on my list, but I'm also just like, what the hell would that be like walking through the streets and you just see like just people everywhere and everywhere and everywhere. What is it? Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is the US like reasonably spread out when it comes to that, or is it pretty hustle and bustle in most places?
Oh, look, I spent a lot of time we spent most of the time in California, and I love California. It kind of reminds me of the Gold Coast, really. We did go to New York for that WMBF show, and being a country boy myself, and being in contest preparation as well. Like right in the guts of New York was the most frustrating thing ever. It was just shoulder to shoulder like this, and obviously I'm a rake. By that time, my contest preparation, I've never been so cold in my life. Contest lean in New York in October, and yeah, so that was just too much for me. I was like, let's get out of here. But
hey, a very thick rake, a very sturdy rake. We'll give you that.
A dense rake, yes.
What is because you again like competing multiple times now? What is your go-to like post comp like food?
Post comp. I'll tell you what, I will say this. I'm incredibly not food focused in general. Like right now, I do have this 1 liter shaker, which contained when I first started drinking it 1,000 calories. So I drink a lot of calories. I don't really, not a food person. But after a show, like most people, my food focus is much higher than usual. But honestly, it's going to be probably something like, let's get some chicken and rice done right. Sushi. Hello.
Hey, like there we go. Oh man, that's always a good one. I don't know. I'm not I'm not a burger person, so please don't say that.
I'll say I will confess that I did get a couple of donuts from Voodoo Donuts in Portland after my last show. And I don't even eat donuts. I don't even like donuts, but had to give it a go.
It's like one thing that I do want is to go to the US just to get a Philly cheesesteak in Philly. I don't know. There's just something about that. I just want to try it. I don't know. It's a weird food like desire. One day.
Put it on the list.
Exactly. One day. Hey, the goal is like we'll just start shooting all the IFBB shows and traveling around the US doing that, and then I'll go to Philly and I'll get a cheesesteak, and then I'll be happy. Life done. There's the goal. I am curious though now, when it comes to drinking a lot of the food, a lot of the calories, what's the reasoning behind that? Is it just don't like the physical having to eat so much, or just not a yeah? What it's an odd one.
Yeah. Well, look, when it comes to appetite, appetite is I suppose it's a complex neuroendocrine response that goes up and down primarily in response to global energy availability. So
Yep.
when you're dieting, food is scant and fat reserves are scant. So appetite goes up. And conversely, in the off season, if you are pushing your weight up, appetite's going to go down. For some people, it's more severe than others. In my scenario, um, my appetite gets very, very low in the middle of the gaining phase, as is the case now. And that's the reason I drink a portion of my calories. So, I might have 2 shakes a day or something like that, which will contain, 350 milk, 60 grams of whey protein, 50 grams of honey, whatever fruit I can find, and a good 100 grams of oats. Yep. So that'll, push me in 1,000 there, 1,000 somewhere else in the day. And obviously we'll make sure that the diet as a whole contains an appropriate dose of minimally processed micronutrient dense foods to take care of my needs on that side of things. But the logical rationale is simply to manage the low appetite that is present at the moment.
Yeah. So what is like your current, I guess, off season like calorie range?
Interestingly, my calories are not as high as perhaps some others. And that primarily comes down to the fact that I'm a glorified desk worker these days. And interestingly, there's quite a profound difference in my energy requirements these days compared to when I was an in-person personal trainer. So, 8 to 10 hours on the gym floor per day.
It's a lot of moving, man. It's a lot of moving.
Yeah. Here's me pushing in, 5,000 calories or so a day. Whereas these days, 3,600 calories, and I'm making an appropriate gain. So,
yeah. I guess, I was curious on that one with like consuming 2,000 calories from shakes, just how much he overall was. So almost like a 50-50, well, actually more than a 50-50 split coming from liquid just to help with the appetite.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, the only reason that most of those foods are liquid is because I blended it, right, and added water.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Right?
100%.
Because, I mean, oats and fruit, I eat a lot of oats and a lot of fruit. At least half kilo of fruit a day. I just love it. I put them in the shake too, just because it's easy to consume.
Hey, bro, it's like, literally all I've had to eat so far today is like 2 mad bowls of protein oats. That's like my go-to staple for everything, and it has been since I was 15. So it's like, I don't know, it's just something good about it. What are the future competing goals? Like, are you focused more just primarily on the business side of things at the moment? Are you still thinking about competing in the future? Is that like a long-term goal coming up, or where do you fall with that?
Well, basically, right these days, I would say that first and foremost, I'm coach, and then I'm athlete, right? So I always focus on my athletes. Give them my everything. I am definitely getting back on stage. And coming off 2019, I was planning on getting on stage in 18 months because I actually missed a WNBF pro card, and I really wanted to push for that. But COVID had other plans, so it's been a longer off season. Took on some additional study, like we said, and 2023 looks to be the year. So that'll be the end of 2023. Busy year, getting married at the end of that year.
Hey, nice, congrats.
I'm going to graduate. So we're looking at the end of 2023. So 60 or so weeks from now.
Damn, that's not bad. And federation wise, were you looking at that, going for the pro card again in other federations, or?
Yeah, so look, we'll have to see what happens for the end of this, for the end of 2023. Obviously, I love ICN, and I've been competing with ICN when it was formerly INBA since I started.
Yep.
I do have a few pro athletes that are going on stage that year with ICN, and I really want to make sure I can give them my 100%. So I'll probably end up competing straight up overseas, to be honest. And the reason for that is really, well, 2 reasons. When I go overseas, like, I know that it's usually pretty relaxed for me, and it means that when I'm attending those shows, I'm there solely for the client, for those athletes. And 2, I don't know how I feel about stepping on stage with my clients, only because, if I got beat, I'd be much happier with that because they get to experience that. And if I happen to pip them, I'd feel bad that I'd taken away from their experience. So I feel like just separate it, keeps it simple. So I'll probably go overseas for that. I'm hoping to do the UK. I've never done it, and again, it's another bodybuilding. It's another experience to get amongst their culture.
It's a
And
good
guys,
scene over there, man. It's a good bodybuilding scene over there. That was one of the
it
things that
is
got
good
me
over
back
there.
into it. Yeah.
Like mate, the Brits really love their bodybuilding, and that rocks my world. So
And there's some really, really cool gyms over there as well. It's a good place for it.
from what I've seen, I've never been to the UK. I've spent some time in Germany, Italy, and Switzerland, but not the UK.
Have you found that as far as for a competitor, it's like what is the most desirable thing? Is it the size? Is it the conditioning? Is it the symmetry? Is it the posing? Like if you had to pick, I guess like a tier list of it, or like the importance of each one, where would that sort of fall for yourself?
Oh, I tell you what, when it comes to those components, I like to put them on an equal pedestal. And the reason is that I put them on equal pedestals because I believe that if you are deficient in any of those, it makes you less competitive. So I often say that, when someone comes to me and they want coaching, I'll tell them that, hey, as a coach, I can't guarantee placings. Nobody can. But my job is to make you as big as you need to be, perfectly symmetrical, proportional, have great conditioning, perfect tan, great posing, and ultimately to make the judge's job as easy as possible to go, well, this person has no gaps. We're going to put them X, Y, or Z. So I put them on an equal pedestal just because to be deficient in anything is going to be limiting. Yeah.
Damn, you had to hit me with a really good answer there, didn't you? Ah, that's not fair. How about on your end when it's dieting down? Do you struggle with that phase of getting like how much do you struggle in the actually getting to like stage conditioning?
I will say this. There is not a single person on this earth of whom is designed to have a literal 20 plus times their lean mass to fat mass, right? The body is not biologically geared for that. Body is geared for one thing or two things: survival first and foremost, and reproduction too. So when we get very lean, the reason things get hard is because it's a compromised state from the perspective of survivability.
It's
Having
like let's
very
literally put both of those in the worst possible place they could ever be.
yeah,
Nice.
let's have in Paleolithic times to have very low levels of body fat is to be closer to dying of starvation. So I think it's never easy for anybody, and people often ask me like, does it get easier the more you do it? And I would say, well, from a purely physiological perspective, no. But the protocol in some ways determines how hard things are. To a degree, like I said, it'll always be hard. And also your psychology. You get better at mentally sectionalizing the uncomfortable aspects of a contest preparation. And those of whom have longevity in the sport are sadistic enough to somehow find some enjoyment in it. So, and I personally enjoy the contest preparation. I enjoy it because it is hard and it challenges my being. And I mentioned earlier that I'm not an egotistic person, but about the only time that I'm egotistic is in my thought process surrounding contest prep, in that I like doing things that maybe some other people cannot do.
Yeah.
It's not to one up someone, it's to challenge myself. Like I know that I'm doing something that's hard, and being able to mentally persevere. My body says, maybe just chill out. But no, I'm going to persevere through that. My body says you should seek some food, but it's not in the interest of my goals to do that. So I find
Nice.
enjoyment in that process.
100%. How about the coming out of that phase? Because I know a lot of athletes do struggle with like getting down to show is the easy part, but it's the coming out that really is the struggle. The psychological aspects of that, the physical aspects of that, the food aspects of that. How was that to say your first show compared to your last show?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, the post show can be a bit of a challenging piece for some people, and it's challenging because, like you said, it's physiological and it's psychological. People think like, oh my god, like why am I so hungry? Well, you're hungry because of this physiological adaptation to the dieting condition which you've existed in for literally months. These are persistent adaptations. Then you remove the goalpost that was the contest preparation, and you lack the ability to rationalize persevering through these internal cues, and people go a little bit crazy. But to answer your question, right, first time to the last time, the first time I got on stage, I got lean, but not super, super lean. So the deeper you go down that rabbit
Still just
hole,
win. He still takes his show classes out though.
well,
This
I mean, the
guy.
standard changes over the years.
This
Standard has
guy.
changed over the years. So it's the deeper you go down that rabbit hole, the more severe those adaptations are. So coming out of the first show, I don't think I had a single thing off diet. I was just so bodybuilding focused at 19 years of age. Whatever, let's go. More recently, well, yeah, get a lot leaner. You know, those cues, appetite cues are definitely more severe. But I believe that every phase has function. Off season has function and it has a trade off. Contest prep has function and a trade off. And if you understand the function, then you can be rational, not emotional in your thought processes. So coming out of the contest prep, I want to put on some fat mass to show my body that energy availability is no longer compromised, and it can start to regulate and reverse some of these adaptations pertaining to my hormones, reproductive and appetite, etc. Regulate appetite.
So you're actually able to come at it from a very, very logical standpoint and just understand that it is a process and put like literally keep determined through the fact that it is just a phase.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. One thing that a good bodybuilder should be able to do, easier said than done. But I find good bodybuilders don't have an emotional attachment to their body composition because they know that it's a logical byproduct of their training and nutrition environment. If you have an emotional attachment to a specific body composition, it makes it hard for you to be productive in the off season and productive in contest prep. Because in the off season, like your body composition is going to be vastly different to contest lean, but it serves a purpose. You have to have, the off season have enough fat mass to perform well, recover well, optimize adaptation, but not too much where you're at a disproportionate striking distance to stage lean. Serves its purpose. Contest lean is a custom built physique for the stage. Get in, get out. It's not performance orientated. You want to perform as best you can in the dieting condition, but you're there to get lean and then get out. That's it.
That is a absolutely beautiful explanation and outlook on it, my man. Not gonna lie, that is a great way to look at it, and just to even hear about that, that's a great way to actually approach the situation. Damn.
Look, I'm probably logical to a fault. I believe that everything in this universe can be explained, through through logical understanding. Even when things seem illogical, there's a logical basis. We just don't understand it yet. So I come at it from that perspective, and that's why, and that's kind of in some ways how I coach. In that, it's part of the reason I love science, right? But the way I coach in a relatively calm manner, because I'm confident in the variables of which we're manipulating and the influence it should have. So there's not really a time where someone's like, oh, why is this happening? I'm like, let's look at our variables. Let's understand this.
Yeah, it's like at the end of the day, there is an explanation for the root of everything.
100%.
100%. Are there any, I guess, exercises that you see that people, do a lot of, or that people think are really good that you think are, trash in a sense, or like exercises that you think are, I guess, used, but there's like better variations to it, or like substitutes that could be a little more beneficial?
I think that most exercises have their place in the right context. But in the context of bodybuilding, we're going to use exercise as a transport medium for taking stress, load, and repetitions to the target tissues.
Yep.
So it gives us a lot of flexibility in what exercise selection we do, which is great. It means we have longevity, because if you're a powerlifter and you can't squat or deadlift or bench, like you're pretty stuffed. Whereas we've got other options. So I think that
it falls back to the fact that it is just a process, and the simple fact that you can actually use multiple different things to put a similar stress from a different point.
But to go off on a tangent from your question, I would say that one thing that as bodybuilders we should embrace is that there's no single movement that absolutely has to be done. We used to be, okay, you got to squat, you have to deadlift, great movements, and yes, we've got to do a squat variation of some sort. We need a hinge, of some sort in order to have well-rounded development. But we don't need to stick to one specific movement per se.
Yeah, nice. What are some of your favorite exercises?
Oh, look, I definitely I do love the big stuff, the hard stuff, so to speak, right? I think that we
The
need
big
to lean
three?
into the hard stuff. And I will say that my favorite movement, personally, I mean, I do love deadlifts. I know that the very hypertrophy specific individuals out there will say, well, maybe deadlifts aren't that good because, if you look at the conventional deadlift, the range of movement is partial through every joint structure which it influences. And I would say, yeah, that's true. But deadlifts are part of your training session. It's not your whole entire session is just deadlifts. And some of the muscles of which we're looking to hypertrophy in a deadlift, for example, the spinal erectors and those tissues, they actually work isometrically and anti-flexion in that movement. And
Yep.
I want to load them up so that I have that beautiful complete rear deltoid bicep with these pillars of spinal erectors that just merge with these lats. So yeah, I love deadlifts. Long story short, yes.
That's nice. And you are a conventional deadlifter as well, eh?
Look, I will say this. I'm very, I shouldn't say very strong. I'm stronger in my sumo, uh, but its crossover to hypertrophy is less than a conventional. So, if I'm going to do a sumo, which I've done in my last block, I'm looking at 2 sets every fortnight, um, just because that volume is better off going
Yeah,
elsewhere.
yeah. I
It's
mean, you
such a
you you
partial
you you are a very, very big boy. What actually are your numbers on the big three?
the big three. Well, look, I haven't bench
Does
pressed in
doesn't have
about
to be one reps. They can be like four reps because again, like, they can be like your numbers even for like sets of 10 or whatever. But I'm curious, like, yeah, what are your numbers?
Well, look, I haven't bench pressed in many years, to be honest. I do a lot more in the way of machine pressing and dumbbell pressing.
Is that just
Um,
like personal preference or like injury or?
Personal preference in that the
Yep.
bench press, just with the structure, with my structural anthropometry, I just can't really find positioning where I drive stress into the pecs, whereas with dumbbells gives more
Yep.
flexibility. Interestingly, I'm not overly strong on dumbbells, maybe like a 50 kilos for maybe a set of 15.
Yep.
Squats,
That's
interestingly,
still that's
have not
still pretty
squatted.
big.
Well,
That's still
have
pretty
not
big.
squatted. Have not squatted since 2006. No, at least 6 years. Let's just say that.
So,
I do a lot of squat-based movement patterns: pendulum squat, V squat, hack squat, etc. The deadlift of the big three is the main one of which I would employ. And I did put 250 for, was it 250 by 8 on the sumo a few weeks ago. Put a 300 in there somewhere. But the thing is this, I often train at a powerlifting gym, and on that powerlifting board is individuals doing, 350, so compared to what? Strong compared to what? I do like being
strong
around that
compared to
environment.
yourself.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
I
and
think,
then at the end of the day, that's all that matters, isn't it? Just compare yourself to
well, yeah.
yourself, no one
Well,
else.
that's the thing. Yes, you should definitely keep your focus central. With that said, I do think that your environment determines, well, I should say, influences your perceptions of what strong is. So, like, if
Oh,
I go to
100%.
a general gym, pull 200 kilos, that's strong. Whereas, maybe doing 220 kilos, I have a bit of a psychological limitation. But if I go to a powerlifting gym, particularly the one I go to, Zero Gym, shout out, great gym, got some of the strongest lifters in Australia there. So I have my perception of strong is, pulling a 375 single or something like that. So any preconceived limitations that I had, they're gone.
Yeah, I
Strong is
mean,
infinite.
I also find though that just the acute response to being in a facility like that, like your strength goes up. It's like when you're in an environment where it's just strong motherfuckers and they're just like doing the big list, like you feel more in line with that and you can pull or push bigger numbers as well, just because the
Yeah.
atmosphere is there, the equipment's there. Like I know even when I train out of strength, just because they've got like their bench presses are that little bit wider and the bars are a
Mm.
little bit more grippy. I can rep out a hell of a lot more and it feels a lot more comfortable. And also just the atmosphere and vibe that you get around a club like that.
You really want to be around people getting after it. That makes you, it just gives you I suppose, an edge just to be around those, for lack of a better term, those hardcore mothers. I mean, that's just, yeah. I love those gyms. Not to go off the top, I love those gyms where You can yell, scream, cry, shout at the top of your lungs, slap your thighs, pinch your eyelids. It doesn't matter. Like, do what you need to
Pinch your
do.
eyelids.
I mean, that's my thing. I pinch. So I used to
What?
slap my thighs. I used to slap my thighs to get in the zone. But what I ended up doing is coming into a show, I had these big black marks on my thighs. So I couldn't slap my thighs. So to get in the zone for leg press, I used to start pinching my eyelids. Anyway, we get off topic.
That's
But those
all.
gyms where you can go do whatever you want as long as you get your set in. That's the stuff that rocks my world.
That's awesome. See, I thought I was strange. Whenever I go under for a squat, I do this like massive like kickback with my leg, where it's like I full on like almost like jump half back before I go under. I thought that was strange, but pinching the eyelids, I'm going to give that one a try next time I'm doing a big set.
Look, hey, try it. I don't know, but it's just it works for me. That's my wind up. I'm just going to get in there and let's go.
Amazing. And with that one, Brendan, I just want to say a massive thank you for actually coming on the podcast, man. You know, it's been a pleasure just to have a chat to you and get to know you a little bit. Is there anything, I guess, from your point of view, just as like a final statement that you think could be really beneficial, A, for someone who is looking to compete or is competing this coming season, and B, for a personal trainer or coach who is, say, getting into the industry or just trying to expand themselves?
All right. So I mean, look, hey, if you're coming into the industry for as a competitor, it sounds very self-serving, but do get a coach only because it's going to fast track your learning times 10. Now, if you're in contest preparation, the best piece of advice I can give you is to try and stay in your lane. And what I mean by that is just focus on you. Keep your focus central. By all means, look at other competitors if it serves as a point of inspiration. But if you feel down about yourself after comparing yourself like that, then just focus on yourself. Super important. It's your journey. Enjoy it, and enjoy showcasing your masterpiece on stage when the time comes. For those of whom are coaches looking to get into the industry, I'd highly recommend that you participate. Get some coaching yourself. I think that's really important. And hopefully you find someone of whom you can develop somewhat of a mentor sort of relationship with. We have an industry that is where there's very limited in the way of direct education, with the exception of Sports Nutrition Australia. We'll recommend them too. Definitely got some data. That's definitely something you should do. But get some coaching with someone of whom you trust and respect.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Look, man, I do appreciate you taking the time to jump on. Honestly, it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you. And yeah, anything else that you would like to say at all?
I would just say thank you so much, Brandon. Feels strange saying that.
Oh man, it's a weird one. I think that's why I've avoided saying your name so much too, because it feels weird to be like, "Hey, Brandon, how's it going, man?" Feels like I'm talking in a mirror. To a much more attractive and bigger, stronger
come off it, mate.
mirror.
Too
But
kind.
still, I should whip out my glasses as well, and then no one will be able to tell the difference. We even got like this hair going in a sense, but I think flicked to the opposite sides. One day,
pretty much.
One day.
But thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I never pass up the opportunity to take a moment and have a bit of a yarn about bodybuilding. Like I said, this is a sport that I love. And to have the opportunity to share it with others, it brings me a lot of joy, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through a medium like this or a seminar or whatever. So thank you so much.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. It's one of those things I've been loving doing the podcasting, just because it's a time where I know that I can separate from everything, and I can just pay attention to a conversation, just have a chat about something, and not worry about the outside world, not worry about my phone going off, not worry about this, that, and the other, and just get to know someone else's story or someone else's journey. And I think it's just a cool time, man. So. Absolutely appreciate it. I don't even know where I was going with that. We'll do a quick little send off. Thank you for watching the episode. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them in the comments. For myself or Brandon, that feels weird to say. But yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good one, and we're out. Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did find something useful, please do share it with someone else you think could find it useful as well. If you're over on Spotify, please do leave a review as well. If you're over on YouTube, consider dropping a subscribe, a like, a comment, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.